Today we're going to show you how easy it is to set up a software rig with a keyboard we like. We're going to set it up with our Sunday Keys app to play the sounds, and we'll be showing you how that could be a great option if you're just getting started playing worship keys and you've only ever played an acoustic piano before today. Starting to use software instead of my Yamaha keyboard with built-in sounds really changed the game for me for two reasons. The first reason is being able to see the sounds at your fingertips in a visual way instead of having to scroll through sound banks to find the sounds that you like. In a worship context, it sounds great to have sounds layered together: pianos, pads, organs, synths, and many other types or combinations of sounds. And with software, you can see these sounds layered together visually and make adjustments to your sounds so much more quickly with effects right at your fingertips.
The other challenge with built-in sounds in a keyboard is that there are so many sounds that just don't work well for worship songs. Pads are used so often in worship, and you won't even believe how many crazy sci-fi pads you'll hear in keyboards that just aren't useful to you. Software designed for playing keys in a worship band have sounds that are specifically designed to be usable for so many different worship songs.
So here we have the Sunday Keys app in the iPad, and all the sounds and the core part of our rig is going to be coming from the app.
Yeah, and if you're curious about what iPad to use, this one is the iPad Pro, and it runs Sunday Keys super duper well. Now, you can also use the iPad Air or a smaller iPad to achieve the same result, but we really like the bigger screen because it allows you to move the faders and touch the buttons a little bit easier on the fly.
You are going to need a way to connect all of your gear to the iPad, and you're able to do that with a USB hub that features power delivery. You'll be able to see that by the little PD. And some hubs will also have another port that's USB-C that doesn't feature power delivery. So it's really important that you have each of those cables in the right spot. This is the stock Apple iPad charger, and it's not going to provide enough power for all of your devices, the keyboard, audio interface, and the iPad, and keep it all charged. So instead, we're using a laptop charger like this, and it's just important that it's providing at least 36 watts of power. So now I've got the iPad connected to the hub, and the hub is connected to the power supply, and it's charging the iPad.
So next we're going to connect our Midi keyboard. And this one is a 61 key Midi controller, and it's got a USB port and a Midi port on the back. So the nice thing about Midi keyboards or Midi controllers is that it's super simple to connect it straight to your iPad or your hub. So all we're going to need is a USB-B to USB-A cable. So now I've got the Midi keyboard connected to the iPad. Yeah, and we're not connected to audio yet, so you're only going to hear the audio coming out of the iPad speakers, but everything's working. It's sending MIDI just as expected. Now, if your keyboard doesn't have a USB port, it most likely has a MIDI port, and you can still connect your keyboard to your iPad. You'll just have to use a cable like this that has a MIDI port on one end and then a USB port on the other side. All right, the last main component that we have to building our keys rig is the audio interface. And this will allow you to send the audio from your iPad to the sound system. Now, there's a lot of audio interfaces out there that will work for you, but we recommend the PreSonus audio box because it's a really budget-friendly and reliable option. So all we have to do to get this interface connected is to use the USB port on the back to connect it to our hub. This interface also has two outputs that you will easily be able to connect to your sound system through 1/4-inch cables. It's also got MIDI I/O, so if you want to connect your keyboard that way, you can do that as well.
Now let's talk about iPad stands. There are a couple that we like. The first one is a tabletop stand you can use like this. So you could set it here.
You just get your iPad set up right like that. And this can be a little complicated, right? Because then you have all your cables in your hub. So if you need a little bit more space, you can use a USB-C extender cable, which we really like to use, so you don't get this going on.
If you are using an extender and you're having any trouble with your gear connecting with the iPad, it's a great step to just go ahead and flip the cable around and see if that solves it. Another stand that we like is this low profile stand that you can put on your keyboard, and it opens like this, and then you can set it on top of your keyboard.
Now, with stands like this that just sit right on top of your keyboard, we do recommend that you tape it down so that you don't get into the middle of a song and accidentally push your iPad off, right? That would be bad.
The last stand I wanted to show you is this one, and you can clamp it here to a mic stand and then go ahead and make any adjustments that you want to the angle so that it looks just how you want it to. And you do have the ability to expand this section as well for whatever size iPad that you have.
Yeah, so that's nice. So you can set it up to be sitting right in front of you.
That's right.
Or you can move it around.
Or it could be in the middle, it could be wherever you'd like to place it.
Right, so you're not just restricted to the space on your keyboard that doesn't have any faders or buttons or if there's anything, yeah. So this keyboard is what's called a synth action keyboard, which means that as you play the notes, it won't necessarily feel like an acoustic piano, which can be good in some instances, but if you're going to play for an actual worship set, it could feel a little bit different than you've expected if you've trained on an actual acoustic piano.
Yeah, that's right. You might want a keyboard that has all 88 keys and also feels a little weighted. There are semi-weighted keyboards as well as fully weighted keyboards, so just depending on what you're after. And they all have different amounts of controls too. Like this one, you can see it has 8 faders, 8 knobs. Some have a different amount of faders and knobs that they already have there, as well as a mod wheel. Some have a mod wheel and some don't have it at all. If you've only ever played an acoustic piano, this is a great way to go, a keyboard like this, because you can get an inexpensive MIDI keyboard controller and connect it with your software setup without investing $1,000 or more on a keyboard. They call it a MIDI controller because it only sends MIDI. It doesn't have any playable sounds without being connected to software that will take the MIDI data and produce audio sounds. Most keyboards send MIDI and can be used with a software setup. And although there are some exceptions, it's likely you already have a keyboard you can use, and you might like to use one that has built-in sounds as a backup if needed.
Now, one thing that we didn't mention is that if you have an older iPad that doesn't have a USB-C port but uses a lightning cable to charge, you can still use Sunday keys. You'll just need a few different connections to do so. So instead of using a USB-C hub, you'll want to get the Apple camera connection kit, and you want to make sure that it's the Apple brand. This will have a lightning port on one side and then a USB-A port and another lightning port as well. So here you'll connect a USB-A hub that is powered. All the equipment that we've shown today is linked in the description of this video. We hope that this video has been helpful to you so that you can more easily create your keys rig.